Oh
in
my
the winter.
God. What?
In the winter. But doing that, we never use heat the entire winter. We
Well, I
never have
guess not.
because the apartment above us and the apartment below us
Oh,
heats us
okay.
instead.
Ah,
So yeah, it's very cost effective. We just wear more clothes. It works.
we got electric logs last year, and I didn't know if we'd ever use them, but it's been really great to supplement the heat downstairs. They're not big, but it's amazing how much heat they put out. So that's been nice. Yeah.
Well, we're going to need every bit of heat between now and Thursday.
Mm.
Oh,
We were supposed to go to Wake Forest to the Secret Artists thing tonight, and we just too cold.
Yeah.
No,
We no telling where we had to park and walk into Wake Chapel. And,
oh gosh.
no.
so we have other things we can do, but I hate to miss it. But
Yeah.
Ozzy's loving it. I let his coat grow out, and he's like a big old sheep sitting outside, and everybody's walking by, and he's as happy as he can be, aren't you? Yeah.
That's a sweetie.
Well, Martin is finding all of the electric blankets and now all of the heat returns and just parking himself in the back in front of the fire.
And moaning.
He's just a sausage dog to the core.
So he's not on your lap tonight?
Right now he's beside me. Barbie's beside me too, and we have an electric
don't know where you are.
blanket.
Hi, guys.
Hey, well, that's the best way to keep warm.
Yeah.
You gotta come here. Come on. Come on,
Definitely.
you gotta stay there. Stay there.
Well, friends, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So give me 1 second. No, I'll go with this. And let's pray. So the Lord be with you.
And
He's
also
also
you.
with you.
Let us pray. Loving God, it's an interesting day today, Lord. Once we remember your servant, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and his legacy of justice, of calling attention to where injustice takes place in our world, asking us to be loving and to be good stewards of the gifts you have given us and to use those gifts to make the world more just around us. And at the same time, we are holding with tension the inauguration of our president today and how weird it is that he is back in office and that with trepidation we move forward. With hope we must hold on, and with light and love we must be the beacons of that hope in this beautiful and broken world. Lord, I ask that you be with us this day and those who are in positions of privilege and power to love and support and amplify the voices of those who aren't. And may we each day come to the close of our day with the answer to the question, did I do all I can today to love my neighbor? May our answer be yes, yes, yes. With your help. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
man,
All right, friends. So welcome to the third and final conversation of the rule of life. I've shared with you all so far 4 different components of the rule of life that ranges from my prayer practices to what else do we talk about? Relationships that we're moving because we want to live in an area that supports a healthier lifestyle, and to be mindful of decisions that I make on a daily basis that have an impact on my health and my well-being, and to make sure that I'm spending time in prayer and solitude and in quiet on a daily and weekly basis. I'm just going to check in right now and ask, is there anything that came up for you since our last meeting or since you watched the video that you want to ask or just wonder a bit more about before I jump into the last element?
I'm glad you asked, Ginny.
Hey, Donna.
I am telling you, I just absolutely, because it's like taking bits and pieces and starting to practice it. It doesn't all happen at once.
Mhm.
But I've been fascinated for a long time with your solitude because you really practice solitude. And I keep going, how am I going to do this? First, I thought the note said 3 hours, and I went, oh no, it's just two. And I'm going, it's still 2 hours. And it's like, what's that like?
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, I think it's different for everybody. In my household, we Barbie and I have a similar schedule most days out of the week, except for when choir starts for her again, which is not this Monday. Actually, it is this Monday, but she's missing it.
No, it's next week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, but I'm
Yeah,
missing it,
not
yeah.
this week, but next week.
Mhm.
That gives me 2 hours to be in the house with my dogs, but to just be quiet, to be still, to be open, maybe play my guitar, which I haven't done in a long time, but I'm gonna try to get better at doing again. But those are 2 hours that are already in the schedule that I have to myself that's not taking me away from something else in that time. And it's just a matter of being dedicated to using that time and space to be present and to be uh, mindful of being in relationship with God. And I think after, like right now, like this past week, I went up and picked up our daughter and then dropped her off. And in that time up to Boone, and then returning from Boone, that time was no radio, no nothing, just quiet. Bless you. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
But those are ways of being solitude. Going for a walk, by yourself can be a time of solitude. Or in the morning, if we get up before somebody, if I get up before Barbie, then I have that time of like this past Sunday, I had an hour and a half before I left for church that was quiet and solitude. Does that help, Donna?
Absolutely, it does because I keep picturing you at the monastery in a cell and I'm going, oh, good. I can
Listen.
still walk. I can,
Yeah,
but in other words, not get distracted, but just the focus that
yeah.
happens during that time. Okay,
And
thank you.
let me just qualify. The word cell is what the brothers used to call the area that retreatants, that's I'm a retreatant, um, that we live in, but it is probably one of the most comfortable beds I've ever experienced. It's looking out on nature. You have a private restroom and a warm shower and a book. I mean, a place to read, and a light there's icons and a Bible and a chapel for just the retreatants. So the cell has a probably negative idea or image, but it's a very comfortable place to be, and I recommend it to anybody who's looking for a way to kind of pause and recalibrate. A
I,
silent
I guess
retreat is a pretty good
I,
way to do it.
yeah, I didn't think of it as the Apostle Paul. It was, like prison, but it was just the limitation of what can I do now?
Hmm.
So I have had those. I've already done that because sometimes it's like when you're in the car and I'm on the way to church, I've got at least 20 plus minutes and back and forth, and so much happens at church and then thinking about it all on the way home. It just, yeah. So, okay. It was starting to become ominous and that didn't seem right.
Well,
Why?
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It is it is a glorious thing to be able to have time in solitude. And it's not for everybody, just like the 7 minutes of silence in our Celtic evening prayer and Holy Eucharist is a tough thing for some people to overcome. Back in when I was a trainer at Biltmore, um, we used to we talk about silence and talking about, you don't want there to be a dead silence when you're working with your guests. You want to continue to prod and get to know them. But silence, like in 1995, they asked a bunch of corporate managers and higher. There wasn't a specific area of business, but They asked them to put their hand up and to drop their hand down when they thought it had been a minute in silence, right? So everybody would start with their hand up, their eyes closed. And then when the person thought that it had become a minute of nothing but silence, they were to put their hand down. The first hand went down at 5 seconds, and nobody made it over 42 seconds. So silence is not something that we're wired to feel comfortable in. But it's been my experience that if I don't get quiet and get still, I'm I miss out on the opportunity to be intentional about setting time aside to be with God.
Thank you.
Susan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I've got a question. So that's nice and a great challenge for your life. What do you anticipate, or what have you found to be conflicting priorities? The things that come and tap on the not only the doors, but the windows and the walls of that silence.
Yes.
And are right to do, consistent with your values, but interrupt your rules.
Yeah. Great question, and I appreciate you thinking of that. So you have a vessel. Can I hold that cup right there? All right. Apart from, so I had we're doing dry January over here. So this was a non-margarita margarita. So in my non-margarita, I've got some ice, but I have all of this volume, right? That's not filled with anything. And it is my job when I'm in that silence with God to not fill this with everything. I must decrease so God can increase, right? So if I fill this with all kinds of things, I'm not leaving much room for God in my silence. And I struggle with this. I struggle with this on Wednesday nights. Wednesday nights, I'm like, okay, what do I need to pick up from the grocery store on the way home? Or did I send that email? Or what phone calls do I need to make tomorrow morning? You know, and then I have to consciously say, stop, be still, listen, shut up. And sometimes in a period of 7 minutes on a Wednesday night, I have to say that repeatedly, right? My distraction when I'm here at home is Facebook or social media, or I want to look up this thing before going to work so I can have it ready for me when I get to work. All of that. So I have to make a conscious effort not to take my thoughts into actions and to actually try to tone down the voices of my own need in order so I can hear the voice of God.
Okay.
But
Good luck with
sometimes,
that.
yeah, I know, right? But sometimes
No, I'm not being a cynical person, but it is
it's
hard.
hard, yeah. And we're, you know, the longer we live into this world, into this culture and society, the more opportunities there are for distraction. And nobody's gonna chime in and say, you know what, why don't we back away from that? Why don't we take some of these options off the table? You just saw that happen with TikTok, right? They were like, we're gonna ban TikTok, and then like 6 hours later, like, no, we're not gonna ban TikTok. And I just wonder, you know, I yell at myself all the time to not yell, but I get upset with myself sometimes when I recognize how much time I've given away to things that have no benefit to me, to my family, or to my community. And that's really where I think the discipline is going to have to really hunker down, is just be like, you're about to give away 15 minutes to something that doesn't benefit anybody or anything. You know, is that something that best use of your time? And sometimes it is if my brain is tired. But if it's like 15 minutes after 15 minutes after 15 minutes, I could have gone for a walk, you know?
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Ginny,
Yes, Alex.
when I was in Pennsylvania living, we used to go to this monastery,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I would like to go out. There was this. It was like cavernous. It was at the bottom of the monastery, and there would be people down there, but it was like, I'm here, you're not. And I could remember saying to myself, just sit still. You don't have to. You don't have to be thinking. Just sit here and be quiet and relax and enjoy the moment. And that would help me. But
Yeah.
it's very hard to keep your mind from shooting all over the place.
Yeah. Help me remember who was the coach at UNC Chapel Hill? What was his name?
Roy Williams,
Roy
Dean
Williams.
Smith.
Dean Smith. Dean Smith used to tell his players to put a rubber band on their wrist.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
every time they made a mistake in practice, you'd see them pop the rubber band. And that pop was to hear in their head his voice, let it go, move on.
Mhm.
Right?
Wow.
And so I keep trying to figure out, well, apart from I would bruise in a heartbeat if I tried to do that. Pretty bad. But I'm like, what else can I do that when I catch myself in the middle of this silence, not really being silent internally, to say, okay, it's okay, stop, and let's move on. And so I'm trying to figure that out now. But it is a conditional practice. Oh yeah, be a goldfish. Yeah, I love that, Sally. That's a good thing. But
Well,
it's a discipline and a practice, and it doesn't come easily or naturally to us anymore.
no, I remember like in the beginning when we would go, I would feel like I failed
Mm,
because after, I don't know, seconds or minutes, my mind would take off and,
yeah,
I just feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah, yep.
Ginny, you made the comment last week about the difference between Sunday for you
Mhm.
and that really Celtic Eucharist was almost this holy space that was certainly a lot different. Well,
Mhm.
that's how I felt yesterday in my small world with as many people as I did having all this stuff to do. And it's like, it was like, okay, you got to bring in the food for the thing. And then you're going to teach the children in Sunday school the difference between a trick and a miracle when I turned water into Kool-Aid, but they didn't see it. But and then it's like then of course the big deal yesterday, if I could have just had yesterday for the service alone,
Yeah.
that would have been awesome
Yeah.
because it was just amazing. And I'm so excited. I knew Khadijah was being baptized, but I didn't realize how many people were being reaffirmed and that Amber was being confirmed. So it's like that all in itself was just this great joy. And that probably sent me all the way home. Um, but yeah, and your Sunday's like that every time. No wonder you need Friday. And we really need to seriously leave you alone that day. And be sure to tell your next vestry that too, because I will share with you all that, I honored that when she first told us that, she's not there Friday, but that sometimes I didn't hit send, or I didn't, do the special send. And it would go through. And then at the next meeting, she said, I need to tell you all that if you're on vestry, I will answer you. And I'm going, oh Lord,
It's true.
don't,
It's,
don't push in. And I thought, well, there's truth in that, but I hadn't even realized it. So yeah, so
I want to be available, but I also want to be, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in this next iteration of the final element of the rule of life for
mhm.
me. But yeah, I do think, and I'm going to encourage the folks who are sitting on our strategic planning committee to really discern if the way Sunday is now at St. Anne's is really, really living into keeping holy the Sabbath. If it's really allowing us in, to be in the fellowship and the breaking of the bread, on a Sunday morning. Yesterday was a fantastic day, but we had a vestry meeting right afterwards, and there was no time to sit and congratulate those who were making such a momentous, move in their life. So it was on to talk about budget, which is great because that's a happy thing to talk about too. But in my own personal opinion, I believe that there's room for discernment around what our Sundays look like at St. Anne's, and but that'll be something that St. Anne's gets to decide, not me, because the strategic plan should be done by the lay leadership, not the clergy.
Ginny, I personally, after Mass, and then when you go to coffee hour, and I know I have to be someplace else in a few minutes and gulp something down, that kind of spoils my morning.
Yeah. Amber, I see
not that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, but I mean, not that I begrudge it, but it's like all of a sudden I'm hyped, because I got to be running off as opposed to just sitting there at the table and talking.
Yeah. Amber, I see that your hand is raised.
I finally just read earlier today your email from Wednesday. That our life is really busy. And when I do, it keeps me very busy. And I was looking at this, and I'm going to drop a bomb. I have a lot of 12-step background, and I'm like, I've served on some of these committees that I see mirrored here. And I looked at Susan, and I'm just like, do I have time for this? So I do have a lot of input in things that I'm hearing right now. So I put down my sushi, which got delivered because Amber doesn't go out when it's this cold with the knee and the condition that it's in.
Right.
My strong opinion is the vestry meeting needs to change days. I want to bring Susan. I want to get involved myself. It's got to change days. And I hear a lot of that in a lot of people's language, reading between the lines that just don't want to say it. And that's out of love. That's out of love for the tradition that exists in this church, I think. And it's also just, I'm also hearing a lot about, we're going to follow the will of the church as a whole. And I really love that too. And I'm wondering, is there going to be like a poll that happens for some of these things? Is that what I'm hearing?
So I appreciate your question, Amber. We're currently putting together a strategic planning committee, and part of that job is to, if you're on that committee, is to interview bodies of people within our parish. And in the interviewing, there'd be a set of questions that everybody gets a chance to have conversations about. Of course, there'll be surveys and stuff like that as well. And we're gathering data to figure out how do we out of that create a plan that will get us through the next 3 to 5 years. I will say that in the church that I came from, and the church that I was a field ed, in a seminarian in, the church that sponsored me for ordination, and the church I served as an intern, none of them had meetings on Sundays. None of them. And they're large churches.
And
yeah, I would say, just to add a bit to that, something that we noticed with Invite, Welcome, Connect is a lot of our committee they worked. They weren't retired people. And based on time of travel and kids and those kinds of things, those kind of competing priorities, sometimes we couldn't meet until 7:30 at night unless we got together during the week. So it's a little bit of a sticky path to travel when you try to figure out we don't want to do it on Sunday, but when do we want to do it so people have an open mind and they're ready to contribute? So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I agree, Susan. And change is hard. And anytime change is initiated, folks are going to be, grieving what they've lost while also experiencing what is new. And sometimes you have to grieve in order to, come to terms with what it is that we are becoming. And like I said, it's not my choice to make those decisions. That's a parish
Right.
decision. And I have opinions just like everybody else. Any other questions before we jump into the final part of the rule of life?
Christine, I saw your hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Didn't you say no?
That's all right.
To hear what you had
This
to
is
say.
not the time or place to go into all the differing points of view about when we have committee meetings. So proceed.
Good.
I'm happy to hear your thought though, Chrissy. Come on.
I think I echo a little bit of Susan's thoughts, and I would only say that as someone who is a radically, and many people on this meeting will recognize me saying this, I'm a radical morning person. I'm in my pajamas right now. I cannot stand driving at night, and I'm only 58 years old, so we're really going to have to work hard. I understand not meeting right after church on Sundays. But we're going to have to work really hard to figure out a good way to do this that might include Zoom, might include the possibility of having meetings during a lunchtime, having them in different places of the church. But yeah, my ability to be involved on committee work will be severely diminished if we start having meetings at 7 and 7:30 at night. So that's just.
Yeah, I echo that, Christy.
And
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
in any case, thank you for giving me a chance to say my piece. Thank you.
You got it. I mean, all pieces are welcomed. We love pieces. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this last bit, if that's okay. Well, hold on one second. Try this again. I don't know if it's good. Oh, crud. Where did you go? Okay. Let's see. Okay. I have to go all the way through the slide deck to get to where we were, so give me one moment.
In the meantime, look at that pretty cat sitting next to Wiley and Janny. Do you have kitties plus kids? Wow.
What happened?
Here we go. Hold on one second.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Now you're probably gonna run through this again. There we go. So the last component of the rule of life, and I just realized I'm missing my document. So I'm gonna stop sharing this. Y'all talk amongst yourself, and then I'll be right back.
By the way, Donna Williams, I know Wiley and Janny's kitty. And let me tell you what, that kitty doesn't put up with any junk with those two little boys running around there.
Oh,
That
wow.
kitty is one tough kitty.
Is it very protective of the boys?
I would say the kitty is more protective of kitty's
himself?
space, but Wiley knows better than I do.
Oh, okay.
He has his moments, but he's pretty docile. He's unbelievably patient.
Wow. Or did he have to learn that when the children came along?
He's a sucker for attention, so I think even negative attention is welcome.
Oh, he's so sweet.
Oh, there's a kitty. I didn't get rid of anything. No, it's, I don't know where it is. Is it inside that notebook right there?
Sorry, guys.
Khadijah, I like your advice on your that you posted up there. That's a good thing to remember.
It's in the lower drawer in my dresser.
Thank you, Tana. I use this usually. There's usually a little cartoon one up there,
Uh-huh.
but I just switched it to this one. Sometimes it says nice things. I'll see if I can switch it. So
No,
you can
but
see the other.
that's a good one. The stress, yeah, because yesterday, like I thought, this is also wonderful, but it's like, worrying about one step to the other and
Huh?
coming home and going, oh, there's the juice boxes I was going to take in the refrigerator.
Okie dokie, friends. Sorry about that. We're in the middle of moving,
Oh, that's
and
right.
anything that looks like a scrap of paper,
Not true.
it's
Not true. I'm not throwing
no, no,
stuff
no,
away.
no, no. But it gets moved a lot easier. It gets out of place quick, and that's me. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So the last component of the work life of this rule of life for me is work life balance, and it's probably no, it's not probably. It is. It is the hardest one for me to live into. Um, I'm just wondering if anybody else here struggles with some type of work-life balance. I see Wiley is raising his hand. All right, Kit.
I did.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Okay, so I may be reaching out to both Donna and Alex and just asking you to help me um, when things get a little, when I feel like I'm failing at doing this. But it's been a part of my wiring for years because I am results driven. My ego is stroked by look how much I'm doing. And when I was preparing for sabbatical, my coach at the time, said, so who wins when you spin all the plates? You know, uh, who are you getting in the way of when you take their plates and spin them? And that's been an interesting mental image to have. Like we all have something to contribute. And when I feel like I'm doing it all, I am really needing to step back and not so that others can step in and do the things God's calling them to do. And that's just one part of the sermon on my mountain over here. In preparing for my sabbatical, it became clear that I was doing a poor job of establishing and maintaining work-life balance. And the more I did, the less I left room for others to discover their gifts, abilities, and ways to contribute. This will be the hardest part of the rule of life to live into. How will I go about living into this rule of life? I will only work 44 hours a week, which will be down from about 54 to 56 a week. I will have 2 nights a week, sorry about the typo, set aside for work. And that would be meetings and worship. Primarily, that'll be a Wednesday night after worship to schedule some meetings. I'm going to step back, and I have stepped back from the administration of the parish so I can focus on being the priest, pastor, and rector that St. Anne's called me to be. And I will increase my pastoral visits. I will attend to my continuing education and personal development. And I will work on being okay when things are dropped because I'm not taking them up. Let me repeat that one out loud again, just so I have it recorded. So when I try to do this, I will be okay when things are dropped because I am not taking them up. If you look at our Facebook page right now, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I will spend only 8 hours a week in the office. I will wear a clerical shirt only on the days when I'm participating in a liturgical service or practice. And this one will be the one I really need you to help me with. This particular item, not just the needing to establish the work-life balance is where I will need your help. I need your help on all of them, but really this one. And here's what I want to tell you. It was pretty clear when we were preparing for the sabbatical, Susan asked me to write down everything that I'd do, and then she quantified it and qualified it and gave that out to the vestry and to the committee chairs, just how much, no, not how much, how very little dealt with being a priest or being a rector. I would say a good 60% of what I was doing was administration. And a rector needs to do some administration. You can't get away from that. You can't, shove that off on everybody, but it doesn't have to be 60% of my job. And here's my story. I became more and more glued to my desk and in my office because going into the pandemic, I was not well. I wasn't feeling well and was hospitalized and found a way to continue to work from home. So there was some of that. I couldn't go visit anybody anyway because I was so fragile. And then the pandemic happened and nobody was visiting anybody. And then later in the pandemic, decisions were made that some folks didn't appreciate or agree with, and what I learned also is that we cannot make parish-wide decisions in a vacuum of a vestry. We can't do that. We won't do that again, because that leaves out everybody else's ability to think, contribute, process, and the overall conversation about change. But because of that, it became really, I don't know how to say this I'm just going to say it. Being the rector of St. Anne's got to be a really hard job because most anybody that wanted to talk with me wanted to tell me how bad of a job I was doing. Or how bad the decisions that were being made, or how they didn't agree with things. And that's fine. My job is to listen. My job is to love. My job is to seek forgiveness. And my job is to see if there's a different way to do it after decisions are made. That's my job. But after a while, that became very hard. And it in some capacities and with some folks, it felt unsafe. And so I moved into my office. I brought kettlebells to my office so I could work out. I bought a desk treadmill so that I could walk at my desk when I was in Zoom meetings. And I brought in an air fryer so I could make lunch. And the thing is that I'm not supposed to be in the office like that. I'm not supposed to be in the office like that. I am called to go be with the people, to go out into the community, to visit with people who are sick, to visit with people who just want to catch up. And that became real for me during this time of cultivating a rule of life. Like, I love being your rector. I love being with you. But I will gravitate towards task in a heartbeat because it has a beginning and an end, an outcome, and a feather for my cap. I can point to and say, I did that. That's done. Relationships don't really have that. And they shouldn't have a feather. They shouldn't be feathers in my cap to hang my cap on. It's something that we give and take and we grow through. So coming out of sabbatical, I have hung up a lot of my administrative duties. I've hired around some weaknesses in our parish. But even in that, I'm discovering that there might be some other decisions that need to be made. So I cannot be the administrator and I cannot be the rector and do both well. I'm choosing to be what I was called to do, which is to serve in an ordained capacity. I'm choosing to be what you called me to do, which is to be your shepherd. And I am choosing to leave room for other people to step up and be like, oh, yeah, I can do some of this. And I'm hoping that we can work together to ensure that I own up to this part of my rule of life. And I'm going to pause right there and ask if there's any questions. Are there any questions?
So,
Yes.
so I would like to push a question back to you. And my question to you is, how do you intend to hold yourself accountable without making yourself wrong? How is it you tend to deal with the tension of what people expect from the old Ginny with the new rules of life? How do you expect to deal with that tension? And, a parish that says it's easier for me to get an answer from Jenny than it is to figure it out.
So I am removing myself to be from the middle. If there's a question that you're asking me about something somebody else should be answering, I will direct you to the person that you should be asking. And I will say, you really don't want me to be the one in the middle because you won't get what you want. And that's the other part too, is like, if you want to do that, then you're going to also have to deal with the fact that it may be numbered 28 on a list of 50 things that are important to me to do that week. So my job right now is to say that I'm not the person you want to ask about that.
Yeah,
Well,
Jenny,
go ahead.
I guess, I think you need to give yourself some grace on this. When you first started, you were coming into a new position and somewhat of a lot of what you had to do and what we had to do as a church is get to know each other. And I think the sabbatical has come at a really critical time. And I'm glad that it's allowing you to kind of expand and think about things that maybe you should have done. But it is allowing you to move forward. And to me, this is just progression.
Yeah.
And so from the standpoint of where you were and some of the things that you did when you first got there, you set up a remarkable trend, and maybe things should have been turned over a lot quicker than they were. But the point is, we've been blessed with a community of people who have been willing to step in and help you with that. And the sabbatical brought that all to the forefront, I think. So again, give yourself a little grace for what you managed to accomplish and the fact that it is going to be difficult for someone, because I'm like you, I'm very results oriented. It's easier to do than to ask. But if you've got the people in place, I think if nothing else, sabbatical taught you that people will step up and they will do it for the good of the church. So I applaud you for making the decision. I think it's going to be a lot harder than you think. And I think it's okay for us to push back if you're not following through. So I think that this is what needs to be done.
Thank you, Donna. And you're right. I mean, I was figuring it out. And I brought to the position a lot of gifts around that because that was part of my job at my last parish too, But yes, I agree that having a time away in preparation for the sabbatical and watching the success happen while I was away, I mean, I am encouraged in ways beyond my wildest dreams with the way that the members of the parish have stepped up, stepped in, and have taken on even outside of their comfort zone stuff that helps the parish live more fully into our mission. So I agree. And so I do need help. And I'm asking you in this time together to please check in with me. Ask me how it's going. Are you staying out of it? Are you engaging people in the work that they can be doing? You know, that's it's a lot easier for me to just do it than it is to say, I trust in the process and I trust the body of St. Anne's that this too will get done.
Well, Jenny, one thing that you said that I think is very important to me and Jennifer is you're being able to say, ask person A about it or ask person B. So that way we know to move on and go somewhere else. Because as newbies, we've had a tremendous learning curve. And we have a lot of discussions like, well, should we bother Jenny with this? And I feel that if it has to do with policy, your name should be on it. Not that you have to react or that you have to even answer, but since you're our rector, I don't want anybody to come up to you and say, well, what about such and such? And you just are oblivious. By the same token, it's like, we don't want to make you think that you have to respond or that you have to answer, but we do get confused. Like, should we go here? Should we go there? And the fact that you could say to us, go to and ask Peter about that, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
one of the things that
perfect.
the vestry is doing, can I mention,
Yeah, sure.
is that we're writing going to have as soon as we can, a policy book so that everybody can get to that and know what we're supposed to be doing if this happens or that happens. And so it will make things a little easier on the congregation to know if A, B, or C happens, what happens next. And I think the vestry doing that will make life a little even easier on you because hopefully because people will have answers to get to and find easier when that's finished.
Yep.
So that will make a difference too.
Yes.
Very cool. Thank you, Kit. I will say that one of the things that introduced early in coming back was the ability to schedule time with me from the website. And you know, if you go to the website and you want to, I tell you what, hang loose. We'll find it. But that has been, well, folks have taken me up on that offer quite a bit, and I'm grateful for that. But I just want to make sure that y'all see it too. Let's see, we're gonna put the Zoom. Do 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 do. There it is. All right. Can you see that, the web page?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you scroll down here to where it says St. Anne's welcomes you and you see this blue hyperlink.
Oh, okay.
If you click on that, it'll take you into 6 offerings. Do you want to talk on the phone? Do you want to talk about reconciliation and confession? Do you want to do a Zoom meeting? Do you need a pastoral visit? Do you want to stop and have coffee somewhere, or do you want to have a one-on-one meeting? Whatever your need is, let's just say you want to stop and get coffee. You click on coffee and then you pick a date that's highlighted that's blue. Let's say you want to meet on Thursday, and then you pick a time that works for you. And if you pick the time, I'm not going to pick the time because then it selects it. Then you just enter your name and your email address, and you will be on my calendar without having to shoot me 9 different emails while we figure out a time that works for you. I will say, if you look at the calendar, there's nothing this week because I have surgery on the 27th, and I don't think I can work the week following that. But if you go into February, then you'll see there's more opportunity to meet. Same thing in March and all that. So, and I have really enjoyed getting to spend time with parishioners, even if they're not, even if it's just to say hey or just to do a check-in or, you know, talk. It doesn't have to be because you're about to fall off the cliff into something. I just love people at St. Anne's. So, but it's been a really great way for me to live into the work-life balance. The more I'm with people outside the office, the less I have energy and time I have to work on things that really aren't mine to work on.
I just want to put in here that Pat Grace again is going to be, she's been the vestry leader for our not our sabbaticals, our retreats every year, and she's coming back this year. And the last one we had was her saying, and we'd had two, at least two before. And she said, "Let me read this to you about the rector's responsibilities." And it's supposed to be all this pastoral care. So it's like our heads are down and, what do we do about this? Now I want to say she's back and then Pat Grace is coming. And I want to say to you, Ginny, she's going to be very proud of you.
She'll be. It'll be good to catch up with her. The priorities for me coming back from sabbatical is relationships, primary. Secondary, or after that would be formation, and that's always been very important to me anyway, because that helps us live into our baptismal covenant. And the third is really focusing on our liturgy in worship. One of the things I caught myself doing before sabbatical was just kind of play. No word I'm looking for. Phoning it in, really, phoning it in liturgy at the table, which is a big no-no. I mean, it's not a good idea to do that. And that just was a sign to me that I'm tired and I need a rest. And so coming back from sabbatical, I'm working really hard to be present at the table, but also to do a better job of creating liturgical opportunities that keep our ears and our brains and our hearts awake and stimulated and not by rote going through the motions. So relationships, formation, and liturgy, those are the three primary areas that I am feeling called as the rector of St. Anne's to really put my energy into, letting the other areas of the parish be done by the members of the parish. Any thoughts on that? Any feedback?
What do you mean more specifically by formation?
Mm-hmm. So, ensuring that the formation opportunities at St. Anne's are ongoing, that I contribute to that, to look for ways to expand what our offerings are. St. Anne's is doing a great job. Anna is doing a great job too as the chair of formation to make sure that there are things happening on Sundays. And then we have some lovely volunteers like Chris Urino is doing a great Bible study through the week, or will be doing a new one starting soon. And making sure that our children have formation opportunities. One of the reasons why our youth presence has grown is because our offerings for youth have grown. But also, the newcomers class, to make sure that when a person is inquiring about what does it mean to be an Episcopalian, that they can leave that class knowing that they have an answer to that question. But I think formation is key to members of St. Anne's feeling connected, not only to the church, but with one another in a way that happens when we are vulnerable and open and learning something new. Does that answer it, Jenny?
It does. Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts?
I do, because I'm silly. Mm-hmm. The word formation, does that just mean class or activity?
So formation is when we participate in study where our Christian lives are being formed. Yep. So, and it can be anything from a Bible study to newcomers class to social justice knowledge, increasing. It could also be participating in formation opportunities off property or through the diocese. Like I'll start taking Sacred Ground later in February, which is a formation opportunity for anyone to participate in, but it focuses on racial reconciliation and understanding racism. So, I mean, there are lots of classes like that. And that's a big thing for me coming back from sabbatical too, is to attend to my own formation, which I wasn't doing. But this year, Barbie and I are taking Spanish lessons, which is awesome. We're enjoying that. I will be doing a lot of my classes that are required for clergy this year, like racism training, protecting, safeguarding God's children, and some other things that are required for diocesan council. And then the fall, I will begin a certificate program, certification program for becoming a spiritual director, which will be fun and exciting and kind of really drawing more into that deepening of my relationship with God in order to help others in theirs. So I look forward to that.
Ginny, have you spent any time thinking about what your personal process would be when you push these decisions off on others within the congregation, and then, Alex decides to paint the men's bathroom pink, and I'm like, I can't stand that. How do I appeal, and how do you relieve yourself of the guilt of not making that overriding decision?
Well, I trust that people who are going to be in decision-making positions are there because the groups that they're working within have trust in them, and that they have trust in the people that they're working with. Ultimately, things like that are long-term commitments to the building, like painting, I'd want to know ahead of time instead of hearing about it. I'd like to have a chance to kind of hear painting.
That sort of sounds like you're looking for the approval process to
Yeah.
say, now, nope, I don't agree with that. You have to change that. That
And
puts you back in the same spot, doesn't it?
Not really. The vestry has to make those decisions anyway, has to work with buildings and grounds on those kinds of decisions, because the vestry's primary job is to oversee the buildings and grounds. That's their primary responsibility and the fiduciary responsibility. So if you were to boil everything down for the vestry, it's to make sure our buildings and grounds are safe and that we are good stewards of our financial gifts.
Well, one thing I would add to that is I think Kit hit a very important element of that on the head when she talked about the initiative to do policies and procedures, because policies and procedures will also move the vagueness out of certain decisions. And if there's something missing and a decision is made and they paint the men's room pink, then what
I'm
we
never gonna
can
live that
do
one down,
is,
am I?
instead of saying, who was the sucker that did that, we can come back and say, how did that happen?
Right.
And we wanted to have something to say about that. Where is it that we've got a hole in our process? So,
No,
I think policy and procedure will help a lot of that. And it will also clarify what is it that needs the rector's fingerprints on it, or the rector's guidance on it. Where is it not defined well enough to cause that to happen without some input? But the vestry, I will say that from my individual, I don't have, my individual point of view, which is like this big. During the sabbatical, I was really quite encouraged and pleased with the number of people that care to rise to the occasion, take on the risk to lead, and if it didn't work out, they go, that didn't work out. So what are we going to do next? I think there's a lot of good talent to work through some of that and leave Ginny with the tough questions.
In terms of policies and stuff, they're the things I like, those type of things, because they make my life easier. But one of the things that I've experienced professionally is that someone will be an innovator on something new and kill themselves coming up with this. And I refer to this in terms of course, what the aims of the course are. And then they work hard at that for 3 or 4 years. And then someone else comes along and, acts like there was nothing behind them and totally rewrites absolutely everything. And then what you had, which was strong and good and healthy, deteriorates. And so there's got to be an element in there that educates people. This is the policy. And then if someone feels the need to suggest something else, that's totally acceptable. But I've had many experiences in education where someone takes over and it's like, don't you realize what these people did for years and how hard they worked to get it? And then it all gets thrown out and they start,
So,
and some
it's
good
not the
programs have gone
policies.
by the wayside because of that.
The policies and procedures shouldn't be like the 10 Commandments.
No.
Essentially it's a living
document.
It is how we work today. And if it isn't working or someone has a new thought, then we have time to review that, bring it up, and there's a process for that. So you don't want it to be the 10 Commandments and you want it to be respected, but there also needs to be a place to listen, change, and innovate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you've lived in that too, Alex. You've seen it where it works.
As opposed to somebody just totally disregarding all the work that was put into policy and so on. You know what I mean? And act like it never existed. And there's no accountability in the terms of, well, this is what we really worked very hard to get here. If there's something here that needs improvement, then that's what committee work is all about. It's about collaborating and moving forward, as opposed to saying, well, we did this for this long. I can't change or whatever. And I've seen.
But I think the one thing, Alex, that we have going for us, though, from a vestry standpoint, is the way that we rotate our members on a 3-year basis, because it's not like we're turning over the decision-making process in total every year so that things get changed. There's still history, the way that we rotate members, because there's always, I think, going to be a history of why was a decision made. Now, this is assuming that we have an accurate record of when policies were approved, when they were, implemented. And having that rotation, that 3-year rotation, always allows us to have that intellectual history behind us as to why we got where we got because of the people that we have on the vestry. So I think from that standpoint, maybe some of what we might have seen since COVID was because there was COVID and there was a gap in some of the things that probably should have been documented that weren't. And it was just kind of a weird period where we didn't have anything formally in place. But once we have both of these things going on, I think, and they work together, I think there's a much stronger ability to have something that new members will understand, new vestry members will understand, and there'll be some consistency going forward. And we won't have kind of haphazard decisions being made. At least that's kind of my opinion, my hope.
Well, and that's what I think is important, that we don't have haphazard decisions and that we continue to function as a committee and aware of what it involves for everybody else who's involved before anyone says this is how it should be or why are we doing it this way. Find out what the history is, find out why those decisions were made, and then bring it forth, as opposed to say, well, why are we doing this when it served a purpose like vestry has in the past.
Well, it sounds like we have some room for further discussion about this. And I think that that'll be part of the case as we put together the policy procedure. And there's another component to that, which is personnel and policies around personnel. So I've asked for some folks from the community to discern if they are interested in serving on this particular committee, and I've had a couple of say, yeah, they're interested. I've also asked for people to discern if they're feeling called to help lead in our strategic planning. And I've had a couple of people also agree to that. But if you are hearing in this conversation, perhaps I'm being drawn towards one of these, take tonight to sleep on it and then let me know. There is one more other area that we need some folks on, and that is the More Fund Oversight Committee. It's fun to play with other people's money, and if you'd like to hear more about that, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk further about any one of these particular ways of serving and St. Anne's. So I am so grateful to y'all for hearing this rule of life, for treating it with the love and respect that is St. Anne's. I've said before, when I went into the sabbatical, I wasn't coming out, I wasn't going in with an expected outcome. I wasn't coming back with a deliverable. I didn't even write that into the grant. I was just going to learn how to fly fish. But as a result of some really long days hiking and looking and reflecting over the whole time I was away, I think God was really directing the last bit of time so that I would have space and energy and freedom to really listen for how I have been changed and want to live into the change of having the gift of time away, and also the gift of coming back to a community that I love and that I respect and that I learn so much from. And sharing with you all, I'm making it official. I'm asking and inviting you to help. And later in Lent, I'll lead a workshop on how to create your own rule of life, if that's something that you're interested in doing. But more details to come on that. Let's first get through the season of Epiphany and into our Carnival Mardi Gras service, and then we will begin our journey of Lent. Are there any other questions, concerns, worries, hopes, words of advice?
Now that you've had a couple weeks of living your new rule of life, how do you feel like it's going? How do you feel like you're changed with it?
I appreciate that question, Jenny. Thank you. It's winter, and with all the snow that happened, Barbie and I haven't been able to walk like we were hoping to walk, because out here there's just no safe place to get off the road at 5:30 in the morning. So that part, we did take 1 or 2 days to go to the gym. But there is something about having that morning time together that we are figuring out the rhythm of having that, even if it's not a walk. So that part is, I think, once we move into the apartment community where there's safety, a safe place to walk, where there is a gym that we can just walk to if we need to get there, where there's a dog park for the dogs to go to if we can't walk them, but they still need to get some exercise. Apart from that, I'm having a really hard time sitting on my hands when it comes to some of the stuff I said I wouldn't take back up. And that's a really great exercise in prayer and trust. And once the new vestry is seated and we've been through our retreat together, I will bring some things to the vestry to discern in ways that might be helpful in the health and well-being of the parish moving forward. But that is a them thing that I need to take up with them, and I will not move on it until I've had a chance to talk with them about it. But I do also want to say, if you have expertise or experience in doing things on social media or websites and you'd like to help out, I would happily talk with you about how that might look for us. So, and I think I'm doing a good job of doing my daily prayer, my 10 minutes of silence every day. Last week was an interesting week. I did spend more than 8 hours in the office just because of the way the weather and people canceled appointments, and that's okay too. But like tomorrow, I have 5 meetings with parishioners, and I couldn't be happier about it. It's just a matter of getting some folks in my life, in my church life, to understand that just because I'm not in the office doesn't mean I'm not working. Yep. That's a great question. Any other questions? So grateful. Please come and be a part of our annual meeting this coming Sunday. And I will ask Mary to please dismiss us if she's still on the call.
Well, hallelujah. Let us go forth rejoicing in the power of the Spirit.
Amen.
Thanks be to God.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. Thank you, everybody. Take care and God bless you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.